Hi everybody, it's Coach Aaron here. I'm down in the Fit for Life studio again. Today I wanted to bring you a quick video on the difference between low carb eating and no carb eating. This particular video ties into a blog that you will find on the Fit for Life website, fitforlife.ie. If you go into the blog section, you will find a blog on this very topic, the difference between no carb and low carb eating. And the reason I decided to make this video and to write the blog was because there seems to be a lot of confusion with people between these two approaches to low carb diets. The automatic assumption is that a no carb diet is simply a deeper or a more exaggerated form of the low carb diet, and this isn't actually the case. They're very different in how they tackle weight loss. Okay, so firstly what I'm going to do is I'm just going to briefly explain what a low carb diet is. Then I'm going to look at no carb diets, and then we're going to look at how you can get them wrong, because quite often lots of people do really well on low carb and no carb diets, but I certainly encounter people who have not done so well on them. And quite often, the reason is that they've misinterpreted them. They've done them wrong. Okay. So quickly, what is a low carb diet? A low carb diet normally is anything between 100 to 150 grams of carbs a day. Okay. And the way it works is that when you eat, your pancreas releases insulin, and insulin is a storage hormone. Its job is to get all that blood sugar out of your blood and to store it into your liver, your muscle tissue, and your adipose tissue, into your fat cells. Okay. Now, I'm not going to go into why this might not be working so well for you. We'll do that in another video. We look at insulin resistance and leptin resistance and how these might affect this process. But that's basically how the system works. But so if you go on a lower carb diet, the idea behind a lower carb diet is that you reduce the amount of insulin that's released. Carbohydrate is the main source of food that's going to stimulate insulin. Protein will stimulate insulin a small bit, and just about every time you eat, a very small amount of insulin will be released. But carbohydrate is the driver of insulin. So if you take in a lot of carbohydrate, your pancreas is going to bucket out a load of insulin. Okay, and like I said, that's to get this sugar out of your blood. Sugar in your blood is poisonous. Once you get over 5 grams in the blood, it's dangerous, and that's why the body looks to get rid of it. Again, I'm not going to go in this video into why that is. We will look at AEGs and how insulin and sugar, more to the point, can cause damage if it builds up in the body in other videos. So if insulin's job is to get all this carbohydrate and shuttle it into, like I said, your liver, your muscles, and your fat cells, then a low carb diet works on the principle that by reducing the amount of carbohydrate you're eating, you reduce the amount of insulin that the body is releasing. Okay, therefore less can be stored. Okay, now there's another side to this. If you can imagine, when insulin goes up, when we carbohydrate, we go into storage mode. When insulin comes down, another hormone, glucagon, goes up. When glucagon goes up, okay, this is between meals or when our carbohydrates are very low, then we start to burn fat. So when insulin is a storage hormone, so when it goes up, we store. When glucagon goes up, we burn. Okay, so what the glucagon does is it releases these trapped sugars, this glycogen in the liver, and it helps to break down triglycerides in the fat cells as well to be transported for fuel. Okay, it doesn't break down glycogen stored in the muscles. Muscles are an unusual case. Once you get sugar into your muscles, it stays there. Okay, it can only come out. It can come out via heat and stuff like that, but unless the muscle is actually working, it's not really going anywhere, right? So it can't be utilized anywhere else in the body, where the sugar in the liver can, and the fat cells it can. So anyway, so a low carb diet reduces the amount of insulin, increases the amount of glucagon, and therefore we burn off more fat. Okay, so that's how it works. Now, a no-carb diet starts off the same as a low-carb diet. And initially, the glucose will come down, or the glucose will come down, and the insulin will come down, the glucagon will go up, and it triggers off exactly the same way as on a low-carb diet. But the difference between a no-carb, we're down under 50 grams of carbohydrates a day. So for some people, they really need to get down under 30. And of course, a no-carb diet is what we call a ketogenic diet, right? So you go into ketosis, and this is the key difference between a low-carb diet and a no-carb diet. It's this line between low-carb and ketosis. Okay, now ketosis is a state that you will enter normally about a week in to a low-carb, into a very low-carb, into a no-carb diet, into a ketogenic diet. So about 6 or 7 days in, your body will completely run out of carbohydrate. Your liver will be empty, your muscles will be empty, and now the body has to burn fuel for energy, right? You have to remember, on the low carb diet, you were still basically burning carbohydrate as your primary fuel. You weren't burning as much of it, so you were burning more of the fat, but it was still your primary fuel. Once you get down to ketosis after that week, your body must switch over to burning fat as its primary source of fuel. And this is the difference, right? And we have to enter a process of ketosis, whereby what the body does is it starts to break down the fats and stuff, and it starts to turn them into a thing called ketone bodies. Okay, now ketone bodies work in the body in the same way that carbohydrate does, but it's so how we get fat and we use it as carbohydrate. Okay, and it can feed the brain, it can feed the muscles, it can feed everything else in the body, the ketones. Okay, so that's the difference. Now, the mistakes people make. If you're in a low carb diet, quite often what happens is you're going to, if you're in a low carb diet, you're probably going to drop a few kilos fairly quick, right? Because as the carbohydrate comes down and leaves the body, so it takes water with it. Okay, so weight loss is quite rapid at the start, then it tends to slow down. And quite often what mistake people make is they might be on 120, 130 grams of carbs a day. And because the weight loss slows down, they think, right, the only way for me to do this is to cut my carbs a bit more. So they might go down to 70 or 80 grams of carbs. Okay, but now they're in a difficulty because the body is still carb burning. It's still running on sugar as its primary fuel. But now it doesn't have enough sugar to run properly, and it's not low enough to enter ketosis. So all of a sudden, someone on a low carb diet feels very, very tired. Yeah. Another key mistake that people can make on a low carb diet is that normally on most low carb diets you're going to be replacing a lot of your carbohydrate that you're eating with fat. Okay, and this is really important. Right? It's one of the great things about low carb eating is it reintroduces to fats which are really, really healthy for us, right? Which have been sort of cut from the diet for the last 50 or 60 years erroneously. They should never have been taken out. But so then what can happen is people can eat too much carb. So they might actually think they're only eating 120 or 130. They might be eating 180, 190 because they've miscalculated their carbohydrate and they're taking in more fat. So now they don't have their carbs low enough to burn fat, and they're taking in very high dense calories of extra fat as well. And the only thing that's going to happen in that situation is you're going to get fatter. Okay, so while low carb is really effective, very effective, particularly for people who've never done it, to go down to just in between the 100-150 mark, depending on your size and your tolerance, can have a profound effect on your body shape, particularly if you're very overweight, and it's fairly easy to do as well, right? So the real key to getting low carbohydrate diets correct is to keep those carbs within that 100 to 120 or 100 to 150 barriers. Don't go below the 100. Don't go over the 150. Now, even if you train, I don't care if you train 5-6 days a week, it doesn't matter. Right? Training has such a little effect on overall calorie expenditure that it doesn't really matter. Right? So don't worry about it like that. Okay, so now we're going to look at no carb or ketogenic diet. How do we get this wrong? One of the first things that people can get wrong with a ketogenic diet is they can misconstrued or misunderstand just how big the effect of going into ketosis is going to be. When that body hits that wall about 6 or 7 days in, no carbohydrate, it's trying to switch over to burning fat, This could be the first time you've ever done this in your life. You could be 30 or 40 years of age with an entire history of using carbohydrate as your main fuel, even though the body is designed as a main fuel source to use fat. Modern diets have removed it and replaced it with carbohydrates, so we've become dominant, and we've become trapped by it. So when you first go down to no carb eating, it can have a big effect. You can get what's known as ketogenic flu or keto flu. Keto flu is generally just a feeling of really, really feeling tired, worn out, and it'll last a few days. If it starts to kick in by day 6 or 7, you might have it for a week to day 14. It normally doesn't last any longer than that. Occasionally you'll get the odd day over the first month or so where you might feel a little bit down. But that's it. That's literally the body just trying to adjust. There are, however, ways you can counteract the keto flu hugely, right? You can really take a lot of the whack out of it. And that is, number one, by making sure you get plenty of salt in your food, okay? You have to remember that you were in a low-carb diet, you're flushing a lot of carbs and water out of your body. In a no-carb diet, you're flushing even more out. Okay, and along with this water comes a lot of the salt and all the other electrolytes that go along with it. And not only that, but something other people don't often consider is that another job that insulin does in the body is it tells the kidneys to hold on to sodium. Okay, so without the carbohydrate, the kidneys aren't getting the signal to hold the sodium, so it starts to be dropped out of the diet every day. So it's constantly being flushed. So you need to increase your salt intake if you're on a no-carb diet. Even on a low-carb diet, you would certainly want to have a little bit more salt in your food. But on a no-carb or ketogenic diet, you want that salt every day. Okay, you want to be having salt on your food, and don't be worrying about high blood pressure. It's just not going to happen. Okay, if you're on a ketogenic diet, the sodium cannot build up in the system. Right? It's constantly being flushed out. Another hack for getting through the keto flu is to consume coconut fat. This is the white lard-like substance that you get in jars, coconut oil. Okay, so if you live in a very hot country, it might be a liquid, but in everywhere in the northern hemisphere, it's going to be a solid lard-like substance, right? So you get it in a jar. You need to be cooking with this stuff. You need to be one of my own favorite ways of dealing with keto flu or to avoid it at all is to make keto coffee. So you get your black coffee, put a tablespoon of coconut oil in once or twice a day. Here's a little note: if you're not used to taking coconut oil and you've never taken it before, maybe a teaspoon in your coffee once or twice a day to begin with, just till the body gets used to it. It's fairly oily. I think it makes a delicious coffee. Now, some people will blend it into their coffee, which I will do sometimes with butter, Kerrygo butter as well. That's quite good. Although I will quite often just put the coconut by itself into the coffee and just let it melt and let it sit on the top. I'm absolutely fine with that. Some people prefer to blend it because they don't want to see the coffee sitting at the top or see the coconut. Now, the reason we take coconut oil and why it's so good for helping with transition into a ketogenic diet is due to the fact that its fat makeup, it's mainly made up of MCTs, medium chain triglycerides, and lauric acid is the key one of these. And the thing to know about lauric acid is the body doesn't like to store it, right? It doesn't like to store it at all. As soon as it goes down, it goes directly to the liver, okay, from the lymph into the blood system, straight into your liver, and it is immediately turned into ketones, right? So when you are transitioning from no carb, from carbs into a ketone body fuel, right? And the body's struggling to make that changeover, it's really good to be able to have those extra, very easy ketones to make, okay? So this will immediately lift your mood and lift your energy levels. And like I said, it only lasts a few days anyway. And then the big bonus is at the other end, you will get of ketogenesis, you get this incredible burst of energy. When the body finally does turn over to fuel, particularly if you have a lot of weight, don't forget, you might have years and years of stored fat on your body. That's just prime fuel. And now your body has all the access to it at once once you go into ketogenesis. It'll burn that stuff like crazy. Okay, and we that's another video actually, how the fact that the body will upregulate its energy levels once it starts to work properly, and how you will get tons of energy. And this is one of the things you get on ketogenesis. Another thing people find quite often is that they get much more acute. Their mind works faster, thoughts are clearer, they're sharper. And again, this comes down to the fact that we're now using ketones in the body. Ketones deliver more fuel per ounce or per gram or milligram, whatever you want to think about it, than carbohydrate. And this is incredibly important when it gets into the brain. So anyway, mistakes people make on keto. That's the first one, that they get this whole keto food thing wrong, and they think, oh, it's just too hard, and they can't do it. The other mistake they tend to make is they have a little bit too much carbohydrate once or twice, and it doesn't affect them. It doesn't take them out of ketosis. So instead of eating 30 or 40 grams, they've noticed that they got away with 50 or 60. So now they start eating 50 or 60 every day. And then what happens is they'll have a little splurge, maybe go 70 or 80 one day. And now all of a sudden, they're starting to edge out of ketosis, and their body is starting to switch over back to burning sugar, but they're not eating enough of it. So they get this absolute collapse. They just end up in a heap. They feel exhausted, tired, fatigued, and they think, oh, I can't be doing with this. And they immediately go back onto the carbohydrates. Carbohydrates, another problem people make with low carb and no carb eating is that they seem to feel that if you go on a ketogenic diet, you have to stay on a ketogenic diet for the rest of your life. This isn't true. Everyone should do ketogenics. Everyone in the northern hemisphere, anyway, or if your genetics are from the northern hemisphere. If your genetics come from a place where there were very few carbohydrates naturally grow in the winter months, then really every winter you should be coming down into a low carb or maybe even a full keto diet, even if it's only for a couple of months over the winter period. It's what your genetics and your body has had thousands and thousands of years of living like, and that's how it will respond best to that. But again, maybe that's for another topic. So just to conclude, the easiest way to make a low carb diet work for you is to stay within the 100 to 150 grams per day. Right? Don't go over it, don't go under it. And if you're in a ketogenic diet, learn to love the cream. Curries, chicken, really get in there. Go for the cheeses. Cheeses are fantastic. They're loaded with fat. Don't go too high with protein. This is another little mistake that people in ketogenic diets tend to make. They tend to eat way too much protein. Okay, don't forget, protein will stimulate insulin to a certain degree. So keep the protein down. For fellas, try and keep it under 140 grams. There's no need for you to go more than that, even if you're bodybuilding style training. There's absolutely no need to go more than 140. Ladies, maybe keep it down closer to the 100 grams, and get those fats way, way, way up. Okay, you need loads of fat. When you're, 80% of your diet should be coming from fat if you're in a ketogenic diet. And don't cut your calories. Fat, you can eat more calories than usual when you're on keto and still lose fat quite easily. Okay, it's one of the real benefits of it. So, like I said, low carb, keep within the 100 to 150. No carb, stay under the 50. Don't be tempting yourself to go over. Once you are in ketosis for a few weeks, you can do what are known as carb loading, where maybe once every week to 10 days you can have a large carb meal. In fact, it can help, but don't do it for the first few weeks. You want to be, maybe stay in keto for a month before you'd even try it, maybe 6 weeks even. But after that, you get away with it. But once it's only one meal, it's not a whole day eating plan, and you'll survive it quite well. Okay, till next time, Coach Aaron.